Blitz blueprint, which we're going to go through tonight. So what we're going to cover in this presentation is the five so-called healthy things that midlife women often do, which are actually contributing nowadays to body, contributing to accumulation of belly fat, which actually people think are helping. We're going to discuss why these methods actually are causing more of an accumulation of belly fat rather than decreasing it, the science behind, what's actually happening. I often speak to women who will say, I've not changed anything. I've not changed the way I'm eating. I've not changed the way I'm exercising, but suddenly this belly fat's appeared. So we're going to discuss like what actually is going on there. So if you understand that, then it's easier to understand the Meno belly Blitz blueprint and how that works. So just briefly to say, if the first two women to message me the word offer, so you can get my WhatsApp number by taking that QR code. During this workshop or afterwards, first two women, you'll get a special offer on my coaching. So you can just take that now. So first one, now this comes up all the time, and I know someone on this call in particular knows about this one. But it's one of the typical things that I come across when I speak to women on the phone about coaching. And one of the things that they are doing, which they can't understand why it's not working, is intermittent fasting. Either intermittent fasting, or that can also be exercising without eating in the morning. So that's another form of intermittent fasting, really, because you've gone from normally like maybe the latest you might eat is 8 or 9 o'clock, and then you've gone all the way through the night, and then you exercise. So that's another form of intermittent fasting, really. So it's become such a massive craze in recent years, and it's because it's linked to that the science around the belief that the body removes damaged cells and regenerates new ones so that it's good for longevity. There is some science behind that, but I'll get on to why for midlife women it's not great. I think for midlife women, it's become so popular because it's considered easier than calorie restriction, because all you've got to do, rather than think all the way during the day, oh, what am I eating? People think, oh, it's easy. I just have to skip that meal, which actually maybe many women have grown up doing anyway, because they're trying to save calories. And then you just can then eat what you want. If you just missed a meal, then you've missed X amount of calories. So it's become popular, I think, for that reason. And then in terms of that exercising without eating in the morning, it's believed that, or that kind of people think that because you're not eating anything, that you will burn body fat when you exercise. So they're the reasons why intermittent fasting has suddenly become this massive craze, and particular for midlife women. So this is why fasting and exercising without eating in the morning does not work for midlife women. So you probably, if you've tried it, know it doesn't work because it's not working. So number one, it increases cortisol. So already when you wake up, natural circadian rhythm wakes you up in the morning, and gets you up and going. So it's that fight or flight response. We have it, we need it, we need that kind of adrenaline because it helps us to do things, it helps us to cope with pressure and to do things at work. Say if you're running a race, that's the thing that gets you excited. All of cortisol can be good. Circadian rhythm makes it rise in the morning so that we get up. But exercising without food causes, or starving your body through intermittent fasting causes more cortisol to be released. And it's when our bodies are producing too much cortisol that it becomes a problem for our adrenal glands. And because estrogen decline means our bodies suddenly are not as able to process excess cortisol. So maybe when you were younger, you're an all or nothing person, really busy at work, fight or flight response all the time, and your body could kind of handle the cortisol. But now, because of estrogen decline, you can't. So fasting means that your body is always slightly in this fight or flight response, and that causes fat accumulation around the body. It doesn't cause it to get rid of fat. And then the other side of fasting is that if you've not got enough food for your body to work on, what can be happening is your body can be using your muscles. So your body goes to your energy in your blood, your fat stores, or your muscles for energy. So what can happen is that it will go to your muscles. And we are already losing muscle in perimenopause and after menopause even more. So the last thing you want to do is also do a method that is decreasing your muscle mass even more, because muscle burns calories even when you're sitting around. So it's really important to keep that muscle mass up, not just for metabolism, but also for our health. And then intermittent fasting, how many of you have actually done intermittent fasting and you manage to not eat during the meal, during that window when you're not meant to eat, and then actually by the time you get to the window where suddenly you're looking at the watch thinking, oh, I can eat now, you actually overeat because you're so starving, or you eat slightly the wrong thing, so fast release carbohydrates, which send your blood sugars sky high, and therefore you store that as fat. So for all those reasons, that is why intermittent fasting plus exercising in the morning without eating actually can be contributing to muscle decline and fat accumulation. And then slightly related to this, I touched on this, is skipping meals to save calories. So I still hear this sometimes. People will be like, oh, well, I'll just have a smaller breakfast and lunch because I'm going out tonight, or I've got a really heavy weekend, so actually I'm probably not going to eat that much on Friday. So even though saying this out loud, you're probably thinking, oh, I'd never do that, but actually it's for so many years it's been indoctrinated to do that kind of thing that I still see women doing this quite a lot without really realizing they're doing it. Obviously, for all these reasons, it doesn't work. You might think that you're saving calories and therefore it all comes out in the wash and it means that you keep to a certain calories, but it doesn't. What it means is that your blood sugar crashes by skipping meals. You probably feel absolutely exhausted, foggy brain. All those symptoms you put down to menopause may also be because you're skipping meals and not got enough calories. Again, muscular breakdown. If you are missing meals, your body has nothing to go on but potentially breaking down your muscle stores for energy. Your body's going to hold on to belly fat because it doesn't know where your food's coming from. So again, another contributing factor to slowing your metabolism down, which you don't want to do because menopause starts doing that anyway, unless you follow the principles that I'm going to talk about later. Of course, it encourages binge eating. You might think that you're skipping meals, saving calories, but actually in between that, oh, I'll just have a rice cake with a bit of hummus to keep me going. I'll just have an apple and then maybe a banana. And then actually when you added that all up with your kind of your snack bar, you've probably had the equivalent of what your meal would have been anyway. So you're not actually saving anything at all. And then number three, so I've lumped these together because they kind of have a different effect, but they're the same kind of things. Massively popular if you're in your 40s and 50s during our 20s and 30s. Low fat, low carb was everywhere. Atkins diet, Weight Watchers, Slimming World, all of that. It was all about low fat or low carb. So you look on the supermarket shelves now and it's all protein, isn't it? But in my generation, our generation, it used to be all low fat everywhere. And then the low carb thing came in, but this doesn't work for us at all. So low fat, and this is the same, whatever age you are, low fat often meant that they were putting more sugars in it to make up for the taste, for lack of taste from fat. So actually, every time you're having low fat, you're kind of getting insulin spikes. In actual fact, when something's more fatty, you can tend to eat less of it because you get satisfied quicker. And then in terms of carbohydrates, the carbohydrate one is a big one. I see all the time. I'm cutting out carbohydrates. I'm going low carb. You don't want to go low carb because you need carbohydrates. You need all three macros to give you the energy to live, to do the work you do, to feel satisfied. So low carbohydrate never works because all it means is you feel absolutely exhausted. Again, all those symptoms that are really easy to confuse or be contributing to menopause can also be simply that you're not eating enough carbohydrates. So you're absolutely exhausted and can't think straight. And then the other thing, obviously, fat is actually essential for your brain health, joints, skin, and hair. And I'm just adding this last bit on because people get confused with fat and think the more fat you eat, it gets converted to fat. The fat gets converted to fat, but carbohydrates and protein doesn't. Actually, anything eaten in excess contributes to fat. If you imagine a fat cell is a balloon, fat cells are always there. So if you overeat more than what your body needs, the fat cell grows. So it's not that only fat makes fat. All of those three macros, if eaten in excess, will make your balloon fill up. Once you start losing weight, the balloon decreases, but that cell will always be there. But just to clarify that fat doesn't equal fat, it's all the macros. And then this is the craziest one of all. So 1200 calorie diets. So everywhere. I think I was a journalist. I think it was on magazine covers. Actually started to be popularized since the 1930s and then grew in popularity after the 1950s. And get this, it's quite shocking when you read this. This limit was seen as low enough to promise fast weight loss, but just above the minimum needed to avoid clinical starvation in smaller bodied women. So why doesn't this not work? It's not that it doesn't work for midlife women, just midlife women. It doesn't work for anybody. Like, read that again, clinical starvation in smaller bodied women. So the reason that doesn't ever work is it takes no account of your weight, your muscle mass, your height, your age, or your activity level. So in order for you to know how many calories your body needs for general existence to perform, optimize your everyday performance so you can work properly, you can exercise, you don't feel tired, you actually have to know your weight. And I know most women don't avoid the scales. So if you have no idea what your weight is, you have no idea how many calories your body actually needs. So to work on the basis of a 1200 calorie diet, or maybe you say to yourself, I'm going to stick to trying 1500 calories, it's pointless. You could be 6 foot and needing way more calories than 1200. So all it means when you restrict to that amount is that you lose muscle. What you don't want to do is lose muscle. Again, we're already losing muscle. If you lose more, then your metabolism slows down even more. So you're even less likely to be able to kind of decrease body fat. It's quite a crazy one, that one. And then the fifth one, which is what I see lots of midlife women do, is running. So they think because maybe after having kids, they ran and the weight dropped off. You know, running was one of those really easy things to do. It was accessible, easy to fit in, and for many women, it worked. Even potentially right up into early 40s, running was working, you could fit it in. But once you're in midlife, it doesn't work for a number of reasons. Firstly, you actually need to run for 90 minutes to start burning fat. So most of us, every woman I ever speak to coming into Kickass Midlife Method struggles with time. They're really busy. We've got kids at university, aging parents, pressurized jobs, and suddenly you're being like, oh, well, I'm going to run to get my main goal is I really want to lose fat, but actually, how am I going to find 90 minutes to run? The other thing about running for 90 minutes is it makes you hungry and tired and you need to fuel to run that much. So it's pointless because you run to burn fat, but you actually need to eat enough to be able to run. So I run a lot and I have to watch my muscle mass as well, because if I don't eat enough to fuel my running for my ultra marathon performance, I risk burning muscle. So running Great for your mind, great for going out, getting in the fresh air. All of those things are great, but not if you're basing it on you're trying to run for losing body fat or losing weight. So, what do we do to get results? We have to work with our life stage now and our metabolism. So, I say metabolism because actually it's our hormones that are affecting our metabolism, but we can get a bit stuck, I think, by focusing too much on hormones and just thinking, well, our hormones are doing this, there's nothing I can do. We can. It's just the hormones are affecting our metabolism. So what we have to work with is what can we do to master our metabolism in midlife. So just to kind of focus a little bit more on what's happening to our bodies in perimenopause and menopause is one of the number one thing that starts to affect us is muscle loss. So all adults, men and women, lose muscle as we get older. So it's estimated that we lose between 3 and 8% every decade after 30. So, you know, that decline is beginning around about 30. But lucky old us women, after perimenopause and menopause, this accelerates due to that lack of estrogen, and it can be up to 15% after we start going into perimenopause. So again, you're thinking 15% after that, and that can accelerate again. So what we need to do is build our muscle. Muscle, forget the diet pills that's going the rounds. Muscle is the magic wonder drug. So actually, all those people, all these kind of weight loss jobs you're hearing about, you might be losing weight, but you're also losing muscle with that. And so actually, once people are off those weight loss jabs, they're going to face the fact that their muscle's gone down, and actually it's going to be much, much harder. And then insulin is a hormone, so it's useful to start thinking about not the necessarily the estrogen and progesterone, but actually the effect on insulin. So estrogen helps our cells respond better to insulin. So insulin basically moves the energy from food that we get that's broken down into glucose into our cells where we can use them. So less estrogen means our cells become more resistant to insulin. So we end up creating more insulin to manage blood sugar, and that the higher our insulin levels, obviously it can lead to an increase in the risk of diabetes. But if you're not getting diabetes, you certainly means you're getting fat storage, and it's that dangerous fat, the health risk fat around your stomach. So it's not just for aesthetic reasons that we want to decrease our belly fat, it's actually for health reasons as well. And that's kind of the two most important things I think to take away from this in terms of like the impact of perimenopause is those two things. There's lots of things happening, but in terms of our belly fat, it's those two things that are having the biggest impact on what's going on there. So I've coached hundreds of women now who've lost weight with the Meno belly, the Kickass Midlife Method. And these 5 simple strategies, if I was to break it down into 5 simple things that you were to go away and do on your own, it would be these 5 things. And you're going to go, oh, how can I do that? That's not going to do anything. It really does, but you have to be consistent with it. It's not to skip meals, and it's to eat 3 meals a day. So don't wait until later in the morning to have your breakfast. Eat regular meals, 3 meals per day, and don't cut calories. Every single woman who's come into the Kickass Midlife Method has begun to lose weight, and I've put them on the amount of calories they should be eating to maintain their weight at their current weight and height, and they've lost weight. So what that's saying is actually, even though some women might have come into the program and thought that they were cutting calories and watching what they were eating, that way that they were doing it was obviously making them snack more because they were hungry, and therefore, whilst they thought they were eating less, they were eating in excess of what their maintenance would be. So I actually start people off on their maintenance and they start losing weight, and then I might start changing it again a little bit after that. But actually, if you start off eating enough so you're not hungry, you'll start losing weight. And it has to be all 3 macronutrients. So what I mean by macronutrients, it's your protein, it's your carbohydrate, and it's your healthy fats. So when I say fats, I'm not referring to cream and butter. I mean the healthy fats from nuts, seeds, oily fish, olive oil, olives, those kind of things. And when I'm talking about carbohydrates for midlife, I'm talking about slow release carbohydrates. There are carbohydrates that are ranked on a glycemic index. So the higher the glycemic index, the faster the sugar is released into the body. The lower the glycemic index, the more gradual the sugar release. For most women, we don't need fast release carbohydrates because all it does is it goes into our blood. We can't use it because we're sitting down to work, and then that gets stored as fat. So what you want to do is have a kind of carbohydrate that slowly releases, drip feeding you the energy you need just for like sitting everyday work, and so that your body uses it rather than a fast release, which will go to fat. And that's fundamentally why you have to watch the type of carbohydrate. Really try and think about slow release. Slow release carbohydrates are all the vegetables, most of the fruits, quinoa, oats, that kind of thing. The fast release things are white pasta, white rice, some tropical fruits, that kind of thing. And then be protein conscious. By what I mean by conscious is it's not about eating high protein, but for most women, when I put them on the amount of protein they should be having for their weight, they think it comes across like it's high protein. It's not. It's just that every single woman I've ever coached is not eating enough protein on a normal level for their weight and height. So you're looking at about 1.4 to 2.4 grams per kilo of body weight, depending on your level of activity. So that's what you should be having. Most women come on to the program and they're around about 60 grams, which is way too low. So why that's important is because obviously we're losing muscle mass. So in order for the exercises, so maybe you're exercising and you're not seeing any muscular change, that might be because you're not getting enough protein. So your muscle won't do anything, even with exercise, unless you are giving it the protein to help build the muscle fiber that you've so what happens when you exercise is you create microscopic tears in your muscle fibers if you're following the right program. The protein knits that back together and creates more muscle fiber. So you can't do one without the other. You have to do two. Why I say have 13 grams in a protein shake is it means you get that protein in. And the reason I say between 2 and 4 p.m., how many of you listening tonight often find yourself between 2 and 4, if you're working from home, floating towards the kitchen, thinking, I'm not hungry, I just need something, I'm tired, or I'm bored, or I'm procrastinating. 2 and 4 p.m. is that window where everybody feels it, and actually what's happening is you're hungry. If you have a protein shake, this is the biggest breakthrough for every woman on my program, between 2 and 4, you will find you're not hungry until dinner time, and you will not need to those snacks that you have, which you think aren't much, but actually start adding up to a lot. So protein, I recommend one called Form Performance Protein because it hasn't got any additives or no sugar additives or anything like that. So it's quite a good form and it's 30 grams. Lots of other protein are only about 20 to 22. So 30 grams means you're kind of, for lots of women, a third of the way there with what you need for per day. Number 3, drink water. So you will have heard this a million times before in loads of different articles about how to lose weight. But actually, so many women aren't hydrated. So that kind of feeling of brain fog we get that we attribute to hormone change. Yes, it can be hormone change, but it also can literally be we're not drinking enough water, which can often drive this feeling that you need to eat more, or you want something sweet, or you want something salty because actually you're not hydrated properly. So what I say to people is before you have anything else, first thing you do when you get up is drink a glass of water. Now, most women say, I can't, before they've even thought about it, I can't drink a glass of water in the morning, it's too much. And I never say what how big that glass of water is. You can literally do a shot glass. It just sets up that pattern of thinking about water and that realization, that kind of mind-body connection that when you drink that tiny little bit of water in the morning, you suddenly think, I actually did need that. And it starts helping to set that up during the day. So before your coffee, before your tea, before your, it could be a herbal tea, but I actually think it's quite good to just have a glass of water cold because it sets up that kind of thought, actually, I did need that, I'm thirsty. So, and then carry that on throughout the day. Obviously, lift weights. You cannot build the muscle that you're losing without lifting weights. But it's not just a case of picking up a weight, going to your body pump class, lifting a kind of a 2 kilo weight. It's actually about following a structured program that requires you to increase your weights over a phased block. So a phased block means you do the same workouts, maybe 3 to 4 times, 3 or 4 workouts a week for 4 weeks. So same ones, and every week you try to increase the weight that you're lifting on those exercises to increase all the time. So you're progressively overloading your muscles to create new muscle fiber. Otherwise, you might be going out and having a nice time and connecting with other people in your exercise class. Great. There's a lot about emotional fitness and all of that kind of stuff. However, if your goal is to lose belly fat, then you need to drive your metabolism and create more muscle. And that is not going to happen if you just go week in, week out, by switching your workouts and doing like such loads of different workouts, and you're not able to track that you're increasing your weights. Otherwise, you're not going to increase your muscle. And the other thing about following a structured program that's specifically for you is it'll help inspire you to train. So you start to enjoy the process and you're not just doing it as a tick box exercise, because lifting weights has to be something that you learn to love. Otherwise, you're never going to carry on. And not unfortunately, but you will have to lift weights for the rest of your life if you want to, you know, keep body fat to a healthy level and continue to be able to do the adventures you want to do in later life. So really it's about learning to love exercise, not just doing it for a tick box exercise. And then the other one, which lots of women think, oh, because of the scales, because of people's like history with weighing scales, is really you need to track your body composition. So forget your weight. The important metrics are your muscle mass, because you don't want that to go down, your body fat, because you do want that to go down, and your waist to hip measurement as well. Because those metrics will give you the motivation and you'll see the difference. And those are the things you need to track. I always also suggest that people photograph themselves, because often, sometimes none of those metrics move for a bit, but the pictures will show a different story. So key takeaways: let go of prehistoric diet methods and like kind of old habits that may have served you once when you were younger, but don't now. And I'd also challenge you to think that they didn't serve you that well when you were younger if you are still struggling with body fat now. If they'd worked, they'd be working now. So running doesn't work like it used to. And try to think of nutrition, which is a real mindset thing, which I work very hard with the clients of Kickass Midlife Method, is to every time you sit down and eat your food, look at your plate and think, is it nourishing my brain, my body, and my muscles? If it's not, there's something missing on the plate. So think beyond the aesthetics. Think about, it's no longer just about the shape, but about your health and what in the food that you're putting into your body, is it doing those 3 things? And then to remember that, the evidence is there, that they do work to help you lose the belly fat and thrive and get stronger in midlife. So these are just some examples of the women who have followed the Meno Belly Blitz blueprint in the Kickass Midlife Method. So Susie's lost 2 stone, and she's gone from like losing all the weight and now actually taking that adventure into later life and training for an Ironman triathlon. And I think you can see the difference in these women's figures in terms of belly fat. And most of them are still with me and still training, because once you get to a certain stage, it's also about what adventures and what other training can we do to keep inspiring that progression, and that kind of love of exercise, rather than just doing it from an aesthetics point of view. So again, if you're interested, I'm giving two really special offers to the first two women to message offer to my WhatsApp. So you can get that WhatsApp from my QR code there.